Hi, Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper. Welcome to episode 7 of Scouting Hot Finds Live. Whether you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, or an audio format as my podcast, which I used to go by Scouting Hot Finds Radio. Thank you for joining me. Have a fun show for you tonight. I want to just click here and kind of give you an idea of what we've got going on. First off, we have as always, a giveaway. We're going to have this plate from last week that I need to give away. I also, of course, have a new giveaway for episode 7. We'll get right into that. I have some unboxings for you, which we like to include in every episode of Scouting Hot Finds Live. And then I have another segment of my interview with Ryan Losonsky. And this is going to be about the idea of traveling displays, which really might plant a seed for a lot of you. So this is a good week for me. Any week that I get to go to a Boy Scout memorabilia traderie is always a plus. And so I want to show you guys a little bit of what I've been doing to kind of get ready for this. I want to remind you too that there is a traderie calendar on my website, Scout Patch Collectors /TOR. And there you can find all of the scouting memorabilia shows that I'm aware of around the country that are happening. So here's what I've been working on. In fact, this is what I will go back to work on right after this airs. So this is a box of North Carolina OA. I'm going this weekend to a traderie here in North Carolina. It just happens to be the Old Hickory Traderie in Winston-Salem. And what I inevitably do when I'm getting ready for a traderie is I spend about a week obsessing about what I'm going to put out on my tables, how I'm going to have my display set up. And this week is no different. So here's what I've been doing. I've got these black boxes. If you're watching on the live video, you can see. And these were ones that Christians had made years ago, named the black box. There you go, pretty clever. And what I've done is another idea that I probably borrowed from Chris was this idea of making 4x6 cards. These just happen to have my contact information on them. And then I have the patches in here with a white solid background. And so it makes a really nice patch holder that I'm happy to use. And what I've been doing is going through and pricing everything. So there's probably different theories I know people have about going to a traderie. Some people would go to a traderie and have nothing priced because everything is about haggling and kind of seeing where the other person is, that kind of thing. But I am a little bit more of, I guess, opening up a store, and I want to have everything priced so that there's really not a lot of friction between someone seeing an item that they're interested in, knowing what I want, and making the deal. And so what I've been doing is going through and pricing all these patches and just making some little, homemade pricing stickers. The other thing I've done, this little orange tape guy, I know you can't see that, but I'll just show you what I've done. This is just kind of playing around. So this is literally the type of little price sticker maker that you would see maybe at an old-fashioned grocery store where someone would go through and there's little dials here that you can set in order to set what the characters would be. And so what I've been doing is using this to make identification. So for example, the patch I just pulled out was an S26. And so using that, again, label maker, I'm able to label it S26. And this is just happens to be Soyotsi Sagali Lodge from North Carolina. That's what's in this whole box. So I've been going through all of my North Carolina stuff, kind of getting that all organized and prepped so that I can lay those out and have it ready to go. So again, if you're looking for a traderie, go check out my website, scoutpatchcollectors.com /TOR. All right, now it's time for our giveaway. Many of you would remember this guy right here from last week's episode, episode 6. We're giving away this 1990 Joseph Cesare limited edition plate, the Scoutmaster. So many of you will remember that I run these with King Sumo, so let me take you to that now. You'll see here King Sumo got it pulled up, and this is last week's drawing. What I'm going to do is click this Ready to Award, and it will automatically pull a winner out of those contestants. And you can see the winner here, Jelly Bean Diver at Gmail. I will be sending you a message as soon as this is over and making sure that you get that item. So of course, this week we have a new giveaway. I will show you that a little bit later in the show. So now what I want to do is take you to an unboxing, which is one of the things we like to do in the show. So I hope you enjoy this pre-recorded unboxing. Hey, Jason Spengler of the SanteeSwapper back with another unboxing. It's not often that I buy a modern collection, in fact, one that's less than 20 years old. Most of the collections I buy are from the 60s, 70s, that kind of era. This collection is from the 2000s, actually from the 2005 Jamboree. And the reason why I decided to buy it was because this guy did a lot of patch trading at the 2005 Jamboree, and I was there patch trading as well. And so he did trade for a lot of the patches that I likewise had traded for and I've had and let go. So, I know these patches. I know that some of them are still collectible by people, these council patches. And, this was kind of the beginning of the era of when councils were doing sets and things like that. So I don't know if he has any of those big sets in here or not, but I know there's some stuff in here that I think is pretty interesting. So I went ahead and decided to make the purchase, and actually gave him quite a bit of money for this collection, considering how small it is. So let me set that to the side, and we'll kind of see what I got in this collection from 2005 Jamboree. So to start off with, this group right here, this South Florida Council, they've been having this Guy Harvey thing going on for a while. This is actually a luggage tag with that set, and then hopefully in here we'll find some more pieces of it. What you're going to see in a collection like this, a lot of shoulder strips, because that, at the Jamboree, that's what people were doing. Although there is something here, like there's a Friends of Scouting patch, but then here's this is Halo video game. Here's a sewn patch. A lot of 2005 Jamboree, 2005 Jamboree, 2005 Jamboree. And honestly, after the event is over, this stuff really goes down in value very quickly, because, in 2022, as I'm filming this video, how many people are still looking for this 2005 Five Rivers Council JSP? Probably not many. But it is true that some of these Jamboree items were hard to get, and therefore all these years later are kind of good. So not this one so much, but yeah, maybe this one. So again, we have this Guy Harvey deal here. It's got the signature and stuff. I hate that on the back it has duct tape. Oh, not good. Duct tape on patches is terrible, because when you peel the duct tape off, it rips the plastic backing, so it damages the flap. But what are you going to do? This is from Bob White Lodge. I'm hoping the tops are here as well, though I don't see them. Those are the bottoms. Then we got some other lodge flaps, Osceola, Tiawe. There's a handful of stuff. There's nothing. Actually, this would be the top of that Bob White set. Bob White that year, for some reason, they had two different bottoms. One was kind of like this one was undersized and is wrong size, and this is the correct size. So really, that's kind of what it would look like. So let me push that to the side. And then we'll look at this group right here. And this is more of like event patches. There are some here that are kind of, good looking. National Utah Parks Council, different ones here. Bunch more dinosaurs, Utah Parks. That's where this collection came from. So it just makes sense this guy's going to have a lot of Utah stuff. More of that there, more Utah, more Utah, more Utah. So altogether, just a collection of stuff, again, mostly from that Jamboree, stuff that I can kind of recycle. Really nothing killer here. Probably that Guy Harvey set, if it didn't have the duct tape on it, would be decent. But this is all stuff that I can do something with. Jason Spengler, the SanteeSwapper. Check out my website, scoutpatchcollectors.com. There you can go and see everything I'm doing in the hobby, from my videos to my podcasts, my newsletters, all that good stuff. Thanks for watching the video. So that was a fun little collection to unbox. I try to get older collections, and in fact, I have some live unboxings I'm going to do now for you that are definitely more vintage. Starting off with this one, I will confess, guys, I already cut into it this morning because I did need to see what was in here in order to message the lady and tell her know that I received this. This came to me from Kentucky, but it's not a Kentucky uniform. So let me pull this out. Pretend we're cutting it here. Shh. Okay, it's got to be an unboxing, right? Pull this out. Now, the timing, sometimes you just cannot, the timing of these things is really neat. This belonged to a family member, and so we have here really, really old pair of Scout shorts. This is not what's going to get anybody too excited, although check out the waistband in there and see all of that. That is like super 1930s. This is the real winner, and it's kind of neat because it is a uniform literally from the area that I am traveling to this weekend. And on here, there is a khaki and red community strip from looks like Troop 6 in Hickory, North Carolina. And there is a patch on here, really nice old camp patch, Piedmont Boy Scout Camp. So this is the prior camp of the Old Hickory Council, and I'm going to the Old Hickory Tradery. So you can believe that this will be out on my table at that show. I'll have this shorts and that shirt. So that's cool. That's very vintage. All right, this one I have not cut into yet. So this one came to me from Missouri, and you can kind of tell if you're looking at the video here, this is all uniforms. And so don't often do this where I'm buying sort of like uniform parts from people, but I'm thinking here there's going to be a red patch jacket, which I definitely like to get. And so I think that's kind of what I was doing there. So let me cut into this and we will see what's in here. All right, looks like we have a trash bag inside of a poly bag. Yep. All right. So got a little stack of that of uniform pieces here, and this kind of takes you all the way through, right? So you see here there is a Cub Scout uniform, and this was in Greater St. Louis Council. And this uniform here, the Scout got all the way up to, well, it looks like maybe a wolf. So Nathan, if you're watching this show, I will be sending you this uniform. Nathan's niece has just joined Cub Scouts, and he was messaging me about getting a uniform. And I told him, oh, yeah, all the time I get these uniforms, and I really like, especially with Cub uniforms, to recycle them. And so this one is sort of a more modern uniform. Some of the ones I have different patches and stuff that aren't really used anymore, but really this one's ready to go other than just taking off a few things. And then also I'll send this Cub Scout neckerchief, which is not the most current one, but still well can be used, and this bear as well. Then there's a Weeblos as well, and the Weeblos colors. So we kind of keep going. It's like going back in time here as I pull these back. Here is, I mentioned red vest earlier. So here is the uniform that the Scout wore when they were in, well, look how far down they put their Weeblos patch. That's like whoosh, weirdly far down. But these are all the little patches they got in Cub Scouts, bake sales, popcorn sales, all kinds of fun stuff going on. Of course, the Weeblos colors. And this Scout would have been in, what is that, Troop 80, I guess, or Pack 80. And so you can see it's like early 2000s, right? All of these have some dates on them. We can see there. But then there's an older uniform. So we have this older uniform that probably belonged to, well, it did belong. I've got the message. This came from the guy. His name is Steve. And so here's some of his stuff here. Looks like little garters and such. And then his old garrison cap, which those are still fun to wear for scouts. And then we have, looks like probably who sponsored his troop, Alliance International. And then I don't think there's anything else in here, just a couple of random patches in there. And then his troop neckerchief, and then this is his merit badge sash. And you can see this is from the 1960s, this style of merit badge with that olive green background, twill, rolled edge borders, and then moving into the late 60s, early 70s, where the merit badges become fully embroidered. And indeed, now we have this silver border, or they're recognizing these are Eagle required merit badges. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looks like 15 merit badges were earned. And then this was another piece I was interested in getting, was these older uniforms. Now, last week's episode, you all saw that I talked about the Fablemans. So let me just point this out. This is the exact type of uniform that I mailed off to the Fablemans. A couple of things there. This is a cotton uniform, probably 1960s. It has a pleated pocket right here. And I did send them long sleeve and short sleeve ones. This is exactly the same type that they got. I was interested in this collection because there's some medals on here. This one reads Fort Russell Wilderness Trail. I'm always interested in trail medals. I think those are cool. This is a Pisa Bird Trail. And then, of course, the God and Country Award. And then it looks like this young man got to become a Life Scout, which would match up with his merit badges. and then also the Shiloh Military Trail, which I think is interesting as well. So several different trail medals on here, which really probably the reason why I was interested in this. He did his scouting in Rosewood Heights, Illinois. There's a couple of other older uniforms here. This one is older, just based on the style, the collarless neck, and I did send some similar to this to the movie folks as well. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed those little live unboxings. I'm literally every week am getting in a collection or two or three, and I do try to unbox them so that everyone can kind of enjoy seeing that sort of Christmas moment of these things coming out. I'm always buying collections. My contact information is all over my website, so check me out, scoutpouchcollectors.com. All right, now I want to go to this interview with Ryan Losonsky. The thing that I really think you'll take away from this is this idea of a traveling display. Now, I joke in the beginning of this video about this idea of traveling displays. So let me just let you watch the video, and I'll come back and kind of elaborate on that point after the video. Jason Spengler again with Ryan Losonsky talking about the displays you have. Ryan, let's kind of talk about a topic that I'm interested in, and that is this idea of a sort of traveling museum, if you will. Now, I know that sometimes as scouting memorabilia collectors, this word actually is loaded a little bit. I don't know if you've had this criticism. Some people will, approach families and be like, "Oh yeah, I have this traveling museum. Would you like to donate your stuff?" So I'm going to leave that part of the conversation aside of sort of talking up your collection and getting donations from people. I'm sure somebody on Facebook will have some comments on that.
Sure.
What I want to really talk about, though, is you have actually done this.
Yes.
So unlike some people that have the idea of having a traveling display, I want to talk about what you've done and how you put it together. In a previous video, you mentioned that when you go to events, you can kind of tailor what you bring by your displays. And I myself have had that idea. I confess I really have not done it effectively, of having for example, we are in the season of recruiting for National Scout Jamboree. So if there were scouting events you could attend where you could have National Jamboree as your focus, that would help, further the program. But let me kind of let you put it in your words. Tell us about the idea of a traveling museum, how you've done it, and how it's worked for you.
Sure. So traveling museum for me really started when I was a youth. What I would do was I would get these glass, I know them as Riker cases,
yes,
and then obviously the much nicer and newer boxware frames. It's really the way to go.
Shout out to Chris Jensen.
That's right. With regards to the frames and trying to display them, you can take them to events. You can put them in a bin. You can travel with them. You can put them out on the table. I did that for my Eagle Scout. I put together a much smaller traveling museum, and being able to take it. I took it to different fellowships, and that was easy enough where I could put it in the back seat of the car, put it in the trunk, and be able to travel with it. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, this has been 30 years later and a little bit more expansive, where I've tried to develop a traveling museum that I can take to events. So when it comes to traveling museum, the trying to request proceeds or anything that aside, and I honestly, most of this is all on my own dime, or family members that wanted to donate to the cause. But for the most part, this is all internally driven. I just wanted to do it to be able to keep the history of scouting alive and be able to show a lot of folks a lot of items from the past. So my frames are really more collage-based rather than being a defined timeline. Now, when it comes to the actual timeline, I was pressured by a couple different, I say pressured, but prodded by a couple different adult leaders, where they wanted to see the different decade frames. Mm-hmm. And what I wound up doing was I had a lot of these different scout shirts, and based on the size frames that I had, I was able to display the actual shirts within them. So I would pin the shirt up, and then I wanted to, again, tell the story based on that decade in time. Yeah. So I would get different paperwork that would go along with it. I'd get different photos to really help set the tone and to be able to explain to anybody who's coming and viewing the museum exactly about that era, to try to give them a good idea. Now, when it comes to moving and traveling. That's really one of the things that has been big on my mind. As much as I love the glass, and glass is pristine and it stays really nice, as long as you don't crack it, which I would crack frames left and right. But hey, again, boxware is the way to go. So I would highly recommend that. What I wound up doing with my frames is actually try to do some plexiglass, and plexiglass seemed to hold it quite well.
Yeah.
In this industry, in what it is we do, everybody's got to make a decision for themselves about how they want to display the items and what they're willing to do to the items in order to display them.
Right.
Some folks will just take photos. I highly encourage people can lay out, take photographs, print it out on either photo paper or just regular, heavy kind of cardstock.
Yeah.
Put it into a sleeve and make a binder, which is actually a museum in itself, because people can flip through and see every frame that you have.
Yeah.
That's kind of how my original approach evolved, so that really I would forget exactly the items that I had, and as long as I had a printout photo of it, I could say, oh, I do have that one, so I know what I'm looking for at different events.
Right.
So again, the movement of trying to do the traveling museum, the last thing is trying to move the items and find a place for it. I tried to set this up so that it's nice and robust enough so that I can move it around, I can bang it some, nothing's going to break. The worst case scenario is one of the pins comes undone and I have to open up the frame and put it back together.
Right.
And then the only other question is the method of movement. With these larger frames, what I found is either getting a big box truck or either a Ford Transit to try to travel in, or even getting a trailer to haul the items to and from events.
Let's talk about another thing, which is kind of to me is a barrier to people really getting into this idea of a traveling museum, and that is kind of the idea of like being invited to display. Sure. So I've kind of had this myself, where a few times in my home lodge, I have the idea of like bringing my stuff. Sure. But there's sometimes an issue, because when you do that, you kind of need some privileges to be able to drive your vehicle in, to unload, offload, whatever. And then also just the fact that a lot of times in scouting, it's a youth-led movement for Port of the Air, for example. Sure. And so somehow like making sure the LEC says, yeah, we're going to put this on the schedule, so you're not just kind of showing up randomly. Like, absolutely. How have you kind of navigated getting invited and making that work?
So two different things. One, I go to different roundtable meetings and I talk to some of the different leadership, and then once you start presenting within your council, it may kind of evolve. So during scout meetings, I would be invited to try to come present. A lot of times it would be for the intro that month. They were trying to do the Scouting Heritage Merit Badge, so they wanted to see it. One of the requirements with the Scouting Merit Badge is you attend or go see a museum. So being able to bring that museum to the troop or to the council really helped to check the block on that, and they could look through, and we would have discussions about some of the early leaders within the scouting movement, and that was it's really opened up the door to try to help again keep the history of scouting alive.
And so actually, at this event we're at, the Charlotte Traderie, this morning, there is a Scouting Heritage Merit Badge class.
Great.
And I can guarantee they're going to be walking through your displays.
Wonderful.
So that will definitely be in effect. So, well, thank you so much. I think that, again, the idea here being, we mentioned this in the other video, you don't have to have perfection. And think about it, 11, 12-year-old, 13-year-old scout, they're not going to look at this and say, oh, you don't have the S2B variety, or they're not going to say this is sewn or whatever. And so that's what I think is encouraging for what you've done, is you have put together a display that's very impressive and tells a story, but it's not necessarily the checklist collector version of a frame. So I think that's good for people to remember.
Thank you. And again, you can see even within this frame, I don't have the original photos.
Photocopies.
I have photocopies. So for the items I may not have, or I may not have displayed in the case, I can eventually hunt for them and try to see what I can find.
Well, we're going to film another video in just a second where we're going to talk about the mechanics of how you put these frames together, because I think that's another thing that for me is kind of inspiring, is that, how to do this and how you've laid it out is sort of, there's a recipe to how you've done it. So I want to do that in our next video.
All right, great. Thanks.
All right, well, I hope you enjoyed watching that video, my interview with Ryan Losonsky at the Charlotte Traderie. So let me make this point about traveling displays. As I sort of jokingly said, this is sort of infamous in the hobby. This idea that people boast about having traveling museums, and they talk to families about the idea of them donating to their traveling museum. And of course, a lot of the stuff ends up not being in the museum. It then gets sold. So this is kind of a double-edged sword, right? Because I also am kind of in this situation where I'm constantly buying stuff from families. And honestly, what it happens is, well, a lot of the conversations I have is about trying to recycle their scouting memorabilia. And what I mean about that is that some of the items I buy, I do keep in my personal collection. Then some of the items I try to find new homes for. Now, whether that's through Facebook or trading in person or selling on the internet, that's all goes into it. But it's the idea of getting the stuff back into the hands of people who are interested in it, and critically saving it from not being thrown in a dump, because no one wants to see their old scouting memorabilia that they had held on to for decades and decades and decades simply just be trash. So if it can get back into the hands of a scout or someone who would appreciate it, that's the whole idea. So I don't pronounce any judgments about people who have traveling displays. Only thing I will say is this: if you never take your scouting memorabilia out and let other people see it, to me, that is sort of the sin you have committed. Is that if we want to pass on the history of scouting, and in my case, I always talk about this patch bug that people have in their hobby, you really, really need to consider showing your stuff, letting younger scouts, even adults, see your scouting memorabilia so they can get excited about it, so they can maybe have the idea to hold on to these things, to go ask grandpa, uncle so and so for their stuff, kind of get the bug to start collecting. So if you're going to say you have a traveling display or a traveling museum, that's fine, but you got to display it somewhere, somehow, in some place. Just my opinion. All right, we're going to end tonight's show with a giveaway. So this is going to be the Week 7 giveaway. I'm going to give away a 50-plus-year-old Jamboree set, 1971 World Scout Jamboree. This was held in Japan. So what you're going to get, if you're the lucky winner here, is you're going to get the official jacket patch still in the bag. This has been in this plastic bag for over 50 years. The patch and also the BSA contingent neckerchief still sealed in the original bag. That's what this week's giveaway is. And of course, as always, the way you will get to that is by going to scoutpatchcollectors.com/prize, and that will get you entered into this giveaway. We started off having a lot of people enter these giveaways, and it's dropped off a little bit. So I decided, well, maybe what I need to do is go back to offering patches and things like that. So that's kind of what I've decided to do here, is to offer a patch set, which might draw a few more people in. So thanks for watching episode 7. Jason Spangler, the SanteeSwapper. Again, if you're interested in what I'm doing, you can go to my link tree, SanteeSwapper.com. That has links to just about everything I have going on in scouting memorabilia, whether it's the videos, my newsletter that I send out, other YouTube videos, etc. Thanks very much for watching.